Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Sciarra, aka Stations Guy, and my guest on today's show is this vintage Christmas album from 1962 by Kay Martin and her Bodyguards called I Know What He Wants for Christmas, but I Don't Know How to Rap It. Kay Martin and her Bodyguards, they had a lounge act that toured mostly the southern part of the U.S. They played in Vegas, Reno, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Honolulu. And they were adult-oriented, material late at night into early in the morning, but not like a raunchy Red Fox kind of a thing. It was adult, but not like Triple X. It was still sort of on the classy end of things. And supposedly, at the height of their careers, they were the number 2 lounge act in the U.S. So they did fairly well. The group, the Bodyguards, consisted of Jess Hotchkiss, who wrote the material or co-wrote it. He also played bass, and there was Bill Elliott, who did piano and accordion and organ, and he sang and danced. On this particular album, Don Miller was on drums, but on at least one other album, a Tony Belson played drums. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because he was the brother of Louis Belson, the famous jazz drummer. So, some good talent there. Of course, Kay could sing, but it wasn't always that way. When Jess Hotchkiss first met Kay Martin, she was a model. She did modeling for photography. Jess was also a photographer. She loved music, but she didn't sing. And so Jess Hotchkiss convinced her to start doing some singing. And he, as I said, he wrote this material, put together this act, and then they got on the road and started doing the lounge circuit tour. They married, Jess Hotchkiss and Kay Martin. Not always a good idea to marry your manager, but they got married when she was 22 on April 3rd of 1949, and I believe my show today is the first time that date has been revealed. I've seen, that they've been married. I've read that on the internet, but never a date, a complete date. I've done a slew of research for this video on Kay Martin. I've been doing this for a while now. The written part on my blog, and I've never put in as much effort and research as I have with Kay Martin. And I searched the Las Vegas public records and found their actual marriage date. So they began this act in 1953, playing these various shows and hotels. She didn't have a big discography. She was in this business for about, I would say, give or take 15 years. And she only put out 5 albums, one of which was a compilation, so that kind of, in a way, doesn't quite count. It was a best of. Kay Martin sings naughty and nice songs. Her very first album was self-titled Kay Martin and Her Bodyguards, and the Bodyguards. And it wasn't so much the adult part yet. She actually sang some really very good songs like Summertime, I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good, Fever, Blue Moon, Sentimental Journey. So some really, legendary songs. And then after that was really when the whole adult thing started to kick in. She did an album called Kay Martin at the Lorelei, which was a hotel down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And she's naked on the album, although she kind of is turned in a certain way so you can't see much. On her first album that I mentioned, she was topless, but she was photographed from the back so you couldn't see much. But this is her. This is the back of this album here. She's very, very pretty, buxom, blonde. Her measurements were 38, 24, 37. She was born in Bakersfield, California in 1927. Very, very beautiful, very talented, very smart, and a good singer, especially for someone who really didn't have any kind of formal training and experience. But this is probably her most famous album out of the 5 or so that she came out with. And I don't know how well you can see it, but my copy here, it's really a beautiful example. It's a beautiful copy. The cover, front and back, very, very nice condition. Whoever had this over the years kept it very well. It's really very beautiful. And there were a number of vinyl variations of this record. Probably the most popular and the nicest, I think, was this see-through green with a red label. Green and red, I assume, for Christmas. There was the standard black vinyl. And then there was this guy, which to the untrained eye also looks like black vinyl. But if I take a light and I shine it behind it, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but you can see black vinyl would not do that. This is actually a very, very, very dark green with black swirls. I think they would call it a green with black smoke, or maybe a green and black marble. The smoke is probably more accurate. But a lot of people, they don't even know that this is that color. And whether this was a mistake or whether they made a switch from the other green to this, I'm not exactly sure, but it's one of the variants that was pressed. There were also a number of different colored labels. So there's the red, which you just saw. There was a kind of white or a light silver. There was black. There was yellow. And I'm not really sure what the point of changing the colors of the labels were. My first thought was, well, they sold these albums after her show, to some extent in record stores, not so much. More so after she completed her show, you could go into the lounge and buy, or into the hall and buy the records. And so as they started to run low, they would put in another order, and maybe that's when the label color changed to signify that this was a different run. That was my first thought. But then I also thought this company that put out the record, the label was called Fax Records, F-A-X, and they had, a lot of other artists and a lot of other albums they put out that had other colors on the label. And so my thinking now is that whenever they went to run more of these Christmas records, K. Martin Christmas records, whatever the plant was running at the time, whatever fax record or records that were running, they used whatever color label was being pressed for that record. So they were running a record of, whatever artist, and it was a yellow label. So when they went to do another pressing of Kay's album, it got the yellow label. It was just convenience. It wasn't for any other particular reason. That's what I'm thinking. This, by the way, this is not K. Martin. I tried to do a lot of research to find out who that woman was, and see any familiarity there? So Fax Records owned Adam Magazine, which, by the way, it's Adam the Bedside Reader for you gentlemen out there. And they put out the Adam Magazine. They also put out a series of records called Adam's Stag Party. And these were, again, adult-oriented songs. The album covers were quite attention-grabbing. They featured very large-breasted women, typically, who were naked or topless. And so I think what the record company did was they just simply, this came out in 1962. This came out in 1959, I believe. So I think they just went back a few years and did a cut and paste and put it on the album cover. Now, I have been through this magazine page by page, cover to cover, looked at it extensively. Yes, I'm a very lonely man. I could not find this model identified anywhere. I could not find her name. It's not on the cover. It's not on the back. It's not on the first page or the back of the first page. It's nowhere in this magazine, and I've looked. So, unfortunately, that's one mystery I wasn't able to solve as to who this was, but at least I found out the origin of the photo on the album. These albums, her Christmas album, which is, like I said, is probably her most well-known, some of them go for pretty big bucks on eBay, surprisingly. I mean, you can sometimes get a good deal, like maybe $60 or $100, but I've seen them for $300, $500, $700. And I don't get it because there's nothing special about them. They're not signed by Kay. They're not a promotional copy. There isn't some kind of oddity that makes it extra rare. It's your, standard run-of-the-mill, I know what you want, I know what he wants for Christmas album, and people are trying to get huge bucks. So I would say if you're interested in getting one of these original albums, just hold out and you'll get something that will be more reasonable. There's a website called bandcamp.com, and there's a label that actually sells digital downloads of the entire album for €9. And the record label claims that this is legitimate. It's licensed. It's been remastered, and sound quality is very good. So if you don't want to spend that kind of money, or you're more into the digital download kind of thing, you can get that album, the entire album, for a reasonable price. This album was reissued, believe it or not, by a record company called Rockbeat Records. And this is the reissue, which is still sealed, never been opened. There's the back. And I'm so pleased that they were so true to the original. They really kept to the same artwork on both sides. Nice job these guys did. Rockbeat Records is still around, by the way. They're still in existence today, still putting out records. This record is not around anymore. It's been out of print for a while. It came out in 2015. But the company is still around. You can see here, Rockbeat, although they preserve the fax label there. Unfortunately, they put it out on regular black vinyl, which is disappointing. I think they should have put it out on the translucent, transparent, light green color. That would have been great, but they didn't. But I give them a huge amount of credit for at least putting it out. I think that's great. Kay eventually got into other businesses. So she invested in an apartment building in 1963 in Waikiki. She had a home in Hawaii with Jess, and she named it the Kaimar, Kaimar Apartments, which I'm assuming is a take on Kay Martin. Maybe it's sort of the Hawaiian version of her name. I'm not sure, but she got into that. Prior to that, in the late 1950s, she bought another a motel in Reno, Nevada, and named it the Kay Martin Lodge. Had about 40 or so rooms, give or take. From what I've read, it did well. She hosted some celebrities there, some parties. She went in on the investment with another man named David Mullins. But when she was out on the road doing her thing, her parents did a lot of the managing of the lodge. And then when she was in town, she would go and meet some of her guests and do some managing as well. She divorced Jess Hotchkiss in 1967. Jess died in 1982. And I believe at some point she married David Mullins. And I say that for two reasons. One is there's an article a gentleman wrote in 2007. He wrote about Kay Martin and about this album, and he called the lodge and he said, I want to interview Kay Martin for my article. And the person who answered said, well, she's feeling under the weather, so I'm going to hand you over to her husband. So she was married. Presumably this was David Mullins. David Mullins gets on the line. The guy repeats his request, and the man hangs up on him. David Mullins hangs up on him. And I think it was because Kay at that point had pretty much given up her nightclub act and being in the limelight and being a celebrity, and just kind of wanted to live her life and be left alone. And she certainly had that right. She earned that right. If she wanted to just be private, that was up to her. But I mention this story because of the fact that it seems to confirm the fact that she was married. The other piece of evidence I offer to you, the Better Business Bureau, the Reno site, which lists the K. Martin Lodge, lists under management David Mullins and K. Mullins. Not K. Martin, K. Mullins, so as if she had married him and took his last name. So I scoured records. I could not find a marriage license for the two of them in Reno or Las Vegas. I did check Hawaii, but their records are kind of locked up. You have to prove that you have some association. You're a next of kin, you're a blood relative, something, which I can't. So I wouldn't have access to those records. But she could, they could have gotten married anywhere, Florida, Hawaii. So I feel, though, fairly confident that they were married. One thing I do want to show you, which I'm a complete geek when it comes to vintage things and this kind of stuff, which is why I do this. So I want to show you this. That's an actual ashtray from the K. Martin Lodge in Reno. Glass, and with a logo on there. I don't smell any tobacco, so it's probably been thoroughly cleaned. But this is just so cool, and I'm sure these don't exist anymore and haven't existed for a long time. There was a time when if you went to a motel, they had these kind of ashtrays, and they were branded with whatever the motel name was, and there was really no such thing as smoking and non-smoking. If you didn't smoke, then you didn't smoke. The ashtrays were still in the room. If you smoked, well, you had the ashtray. And a lot of times these motels had matchbooks that were branded, that promoted the motel's name. You don't see that so much anymore. Is there anyone who even uses matchbooks? Are they around? Do people even use them? I don't know the last time I saw someone actually use a match. But, that's the way it was back then. It was pretty cool. Today, or at some point, I guess I should say, the lodge changed their business model from just being a regular motel to being an extended stay property. So people could stay there for years. They basically became renters. It basically became a kind of an apartment building, a small apartment complex. And there are things online where people have said they had been there for 5 years or 7 years. And so that's what it eventually turned into. I actually called the lodge myself twice, and both times I got an answering machine. I left a message. Nobody ever called me back. Last year, I wrote them a letter, and I put a self-addressed stamped envelope inside. Nobody ever wrote me back. But I did manage to record the answering machine that I got when I called. I'm going to play that for you now. I've got it on my computer here. I got to fire it up and log in. It's interesting, though, because I may be wrong on this, but to me it sounds like it's a real answering machine. Like it's not voicemail. It's an actual answering machine, like from the 80s or something. So let me play this for you. I'm going to try and get the laptop close to the microphone so you can hopefully hear it decently.
Hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Now, like I say, I may be way off, but I mean, to my ears, that sounds like an answering machine. But I never got anywhere trying to get in touch with them and contact them. One thing I wanted to, that was really important to me when I talked in this segment about the K. Martin Lodge, was to be able to throw up some pictures for you guys to show you the lodge or whatever was there today. I mean, this lodge has been around since, I don't know, at least the early 50s anyway. So I didn't know what was there. Maybe nothing was there. Maybe they tore it down. Maybe it was boarded up. Maybe it became some other business and it wasn't a motel anymore. But whatever was there, even if nothing was there, that's what I wanted to show you. So I went online, and there are people who have done reviews of the K. Martin Lodge, and they put pictures on there, but some of them are old, and I don't have the right to use those pictures. Technically, the people who took the pictures own the copyright, and I can't just use them, although I'm sure some people may do that. I went on Google Maps, which does have a 360 street view, and you can grab those usually for free and just give Google credit. But those images were 8 years old, and I didn't want to put something on here that was 8 years old, because especially if there was nothing there today. I wanted something that showed what was there today. So, I don't live anywhere near Reno, and I'm not going to fly there just to take some pictures. So I was trying to rack my brain, how can I get pictures of what's there? So I ended up contacting 3 area businesses that were located very close to the K. Martin Lodge. And I asked them, I said, hey, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm doing this vlog and I'd like to get some pictures. Could someone from your business just walk down the street, snap some pictures, and email them to me? I would really appreciate it. Well, 2 of the businesses completely ignored me, never responded. And the 3rd business basically said, go away, you bother us. So that took care of that. Then I thought, well, maybe I'll contact some area photographers. Maybe they can help me out. I mean, that's what they do. It's their job. So I contacted 3 different ones. The first one I didn't get anywhere with. She said, I do animals and I do people. I don't do buildings. And I'm thinking, what's the big deal? I mean, if anything, a building's easy. It's not like trying to work with somebody and get them to turn this way and do that and make babies laugh and smile and whatever and pose animals. It's just a building. You go there and you take some pictures. No, I do animals and I do people. That's it. Okay. So I moved on to the next guy who said he was very expensive and didn't even bother to quote me because he knew it was going to be, out of my budget, which, by the way, I basically don't have a budget. I mean, this is not a money-making operation here. It's not like I'm, racking in the big bucks. So he said, well, I know this other gal. She might be able to help you. So he put me in touch with this other woman photographer, Reno area. And she quoted me $500 for 1 hour. And actually, she said it would be more than that because because I'm doing it for YouTube, I'm a commercial account, so she would charge even more. And she explained, well, I got to drive down to this place, I got to take the pictures, I got to drive back to the office, I've got to upload the pictures, I've got to edit them, I have to, this is wear and tear on my digital camera, on the motor, and it reduces the life, I take that into consideration. And, like I said, I don't have $500 to take a couple of pictures of a building, so that wasn't going to work. So then I just asked around, people I knew, friends, relatives, do you know anybody who lives or works in Reno who might be able to do this for me? Well, nobody knew anybody. Nobody knows anybody in Reno. I guess nobody lives in Reno except maybe if you stay at a motel. Nobody knows anybody at Reno. So, and I'm like going to bed at night thinking, how am I going to do this? I don't want to use pictures that are 8 years old, to use pictures that I don't have the right to use. And I'm racking my brain here. So I finally came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea, except I'm not going to tell you what it was because I don't want to potentially get the person into trouble. But thank you, Jennifer, wherever you are. You were a lifesaver. She got some pictures for me, which I'm going to throw up there. I asked her to do a picture of the sign, which she did. I asked her to get a picture of the entrance where you drive in to the property. I asked her to get a picture in front of the lodge office building. And interestingly, I could see there was some kind of a sign on the door or in the window of the office. I couldn't quite tell what it was, so I did kind of a super zoom in close up, which distorted it, but it was good enough so I could tell that it said office open. And this is interesting because when I went to the Google Maps and went to the street view and zoomed in on the office door, guess what? There was the same exact sign, black, bold letters, all caps, that said office open. So that sign's been there for a long time. And it was also important, just to get these pictures, because on MapQuest, it actually lists the property as permanently closed, which makes me think, when I read that, I think they're out of business. That's what permanently closed means to me. So it was important to me to see what was there and what was going on. Now, I think maybe what they mean by that is it's not a motel anymore. It's essentially a long extended stay property or an apartment complex. And so the lodge, I guess, technically is closed because they don't take reservations. But still, it's very misleading to say a business is permanently closed. So she got these pictures. She got a street view, and she got, one or two other pictures showing the cars in the parking lot and so on to show that, people actually live there. It's interesting because if you look at the pictures of the lodge today and compare to the ones that are on the internet that are older, it looks very much the same. They haven't done much to it. Maybe they painted it and whatever, but it really looks very original. It's almost like a time warp. So that's really interesting. So I really, I'm sort of patting myself on the back that I was able to think of this idea to get these pictures, and I'm just pleased that I was able to get that for you. So another item that I'll just throw out there again as part of my research. The lodge at one point was put up for sale. It was between July and October of, what was it? I think it was 1998, I believe. But it was eventually, like I say, in October, end of October, it was taken off the market. I don't think it ever sold. So whoever, I don't know who owns it now, if somebody else took over or it's changed hands within the family, whatever. One other mystery that I was trying to solve was, is Kay Martin still alive? And again, this is an area where, because I don't have any blood relation to her, I don't have any connection with her, it's tough to try and get this information. On the net, there was a post in 2008 by Patrick Hotchkiss, who was Jess Hotchkiss's son, Kay Martin's stepson. And he posted in 2008 a couple sentences, and he says in there that Kay Martin is still alive. Then there was a post from 2018. It was a review of the Kay Martin Lodge, someone who had stayed there. And this person said in her review, or his review, whatever, that Kay had passed away, but she didn't say when. And like I said, I did a lot of research trying to find out if there was a death date out there somewhere. I contacted the Reno Gazette-Journal, and I asked them if they had any record of a Kay Martin or a Kay Mullins obituary. They said they did not. I ended up finding this on the internet, which showed a death date in 2010, September of 2010, of a Kay Martin who was born in 1927, like the Kay Martin we're talking about, who lived in Reno. The zip code matches the zip code of the Kay Martin Lodge. So in 2010, she would have been 83. Now, I don't know if this is the Kay Martin, the same Kay Martin we're talking about here. I don't have a way of verifying it. Just because there's no obituary doesn't mean she's still alive. She turned very private. It's possible that she didn't want any kind of obituary or fanfare or any kind of attention brought to her. So maybe there was no obituary. Or maybe she didn't die in Reno. Maybe she died in Hawaii or Florida or somewhere else. So that's another mystery that I have not been able to really nail down. I suspect she probably is no longer with us, but I can't provide you with a firm date of death. I'm going to read to you some of the song titles and a little bit from the back of the album. So on the back of the album, it's got a little bit of information on her. But as far as the album is concerned, it says here, "Here's the wildest Christmas fun album you'll ever hear in this century or any other. It's strictly for adults and loaded with a daring broadside of the sexiest, most delightful naughty songs, stories, and spicy chatter ever recorded." Now, it says spicy chatter because side B is a recording of their stand-up act, of the comedy act, which isn't so much Kay, it's more her bodyguard. Side A is Kay singing the songs that were written by Jess and Bill and arranged by Bill. But here are the song titles. "Hang Your Balls on the Christmas Tree." "I Want a Casting Couch for Christmas." "Come On Santa, Let's Have a Ball." The Night Before Christmas Binge. Santa's doing the horizontal twist. Santa's going to be late tonight. The girls were all happy. And then the title track, I Know What He Wants for Christmas, but I don't know how to rap it. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you do like this stuff, there's more of it on my YouTube channel. There's another video I do on a vintage adult album, which you should find interesting if you found this interesting. I've got a video on 8-tracks, got a video on videos on a number of vintage-related topics, and that's what I do on my free blog, by the way. So recommendedstations.com mostly is this similar kind of thing, obviously without the video aspect. You can go there, it's free. And also, if you expand the information down below, you'll find links to Buy Me a Coffee and PayPal and my Patreon page. So if you'd like to support what I do, I can't tell you how many hours and hours of research I put into this and into a lot of my written articles and my videos. So if you'd like to support what I do, you can go there and make a contribution if you'd like. I would appreciate that. So that's all for today's show. Like me if you would. Leave some positive comments down there if you would as well. And subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Until then, have a K. Martin Christmas.